Welcome back to Rewind to the Living Dead, where apparently I just can't stop tripping over my own words. I'm Damon Martin.
And I'm Patrick Guerra.
And Patrick, tonight we are talking about what has become a very highly anticipated sequel for a film that we have talked about off air. We actually never reviewed the original, although I'm sure at some point we will. And we actually thought about doing it prior to the sequel, just didn't work out with all the timing of other new films that were coming out. But yes, tonight, Patrick, we are talking about Ready or Not 2, Here I Come.
Damon, Ready or Not 2 is finally here. Here it comes. Released in March of 2026, starring the likes of Sean Hatosy as Titus Danforth, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Ursula Danforth, Elijah Wood as the lawyer, Catherine Newton joins the cast as Faith McCauley, and of course, coming right back herself, Damon, another bride, if you will, Samara Weaving, back again. After surviving one deadly game, Grace and her sister Faith must now outrun four rival families competing for a powerful throne. Winner takes all. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come finally arrives, Damon. I know the horror community, the movie community in general, very excited for this sequel, Damon. I think this is universally speaking a beloved horror film.
I mean, the original came out and nobody really thought it was going to do much of anything. I mean, as I mentioned in the intro, if you don't listen to the intro, that's fine. But, you know, when Radio Silence, the team that made the original, put it out, they were not household names. They put it out. Samara Weaving at that point was not, incredibly well known. They didn't really have any, Andy McDowell was probably the biggest name actor they had in that movie at that point. I mean, I know, they had a couple other, Adam Brody's in it, a couple other people, but for the most part, it was a pretty low risk movie. $6 million budget, didn't expect much, and then, while $57 million doesn't sound like a lot on a $6 million budget with no marketing, which is pretty much what that film had, that's a big win. I mean, that's a huge win. And while the team at Radio Silence had contemplated doing a sequel, they wrote a script right away, said, we'd love to do it again. That film got so much attention, that got them Scream, which is obviously a massive, massive franchise, and they went on to make two of those films. So, coming back around to this one, like I mentioned in the intro, nobody saw this coming. Ready or Not was not supposed to be this big hit. They were just hoping to kind of make their money back, and then they more than quadrupled their money at the box office, and kind of made Samara Weaving a star, made the Radio Silence guys stars, and here we are back in 2026 for a sequel. And Patrick, I'm going to open the show and kind of bury the lead because we are going to be reviewing this movie, but because this is a sequel, I know at some point on the podcast history we have mentioned Ready or Not, probably during Abigail or maybe even during Scream, because obviously those are the same guys who wrote and directed this one. And at some point during the course of our podcast, you have mentioned very vividly that you do not like Ready or Not. Whereas I said, I'm talking about the original, not the sequel, the original. And I said, I love Ready or Not. It was one of my favorite films that year. And I think that was in 2019, which is before we started the podcast. So Patrick, I'm putting the spotlight on you right now because the DNA of Ready or Not 2 is similar. I mean, come on, anyone who saw a trailer, anyone who knows the premise, they're not reinventing the wheel. They didn't suddenly, this is not Joker and Joker Folie à Deux, where you're like, what in the hell happened between one film to the next? The premise is similar. They're not trying to change things up. We know, I mean, you see a teaser trailer, you kind of know what's going on here. So I'm not spoiling anything by saying this. I'm just saying, if you've seen Ready or Not 1 or Ready or Not, you know what you're getting into with Ready or Not 2. They did not totally change the format. So, Patrick, putting you on the spot, what is it you hated so much about Ready or Not? Because you have this is like Halloween Ends levels of hate. You seem to really despise this movie, and I don't know that we've ever really gotten into it because we never reviewed it, so we never had an in-depth conversation. So, spotlight on you, Patrick. What is it you hate so much about Ready or Not?
Ready or Not would have been a great early podcast episode for us because we were still getting to know each other as film fans too back then. And I knew you'd liked it, but it was before we started the podcast. And it's really simple, Damon. It's nothing that Ready or Not is doing wrong. It is a style of filmmaking. It is a tonal thing. Because I think about it a lot, and we've talked about it, I think, briefly before with other movies. I think of Scare Me as one where I watched Scare Me. We talked about it on the podcast, and I said to myself, there's nothing wrong with this movie at all. I don't like it. Those two things can exist at the same time, and a lot of horror fans don't equate the two things. They go to, if you don't like it, then you think it's a bad movie. No, I don't think Ready or Not's a bad movie. I don't think Ready or Not 2 Here I Come is a bad movie. The style of filmmaking is like nails on a chalkboard to Patrick Guerra. It has nothing to do with the quality, the output, the acting. I think it works for general audiences for the most part. And it all comes down to one very key element that the general blanket element that Ready or Not, the franchise now, is very guilty of, and that is self-aware humor. And self-aware humor does not work for me. It's just a personal preference. It's like I know for you, you do not like movies that are so bad they're good. Like you say that you go, some people, they love Evil Dead because it's so bad it's good. They love Blood Fart Lake because it's so bad it's good, and you're like, don't waste my time with that shit. I can't tell you how many people in the month of March have DM'd me or the podcast or our Patreon and said, please do Leprechaun. And I go, do you want Damon to punch me through the internet? He doesn't want to watch Leprechaun. He has no desire to do it because you don't like really stupid movies that are stupid for the sake of being stupid. Like, they don't work for you. You like a good comedy. And I'll even concede that Ready or Not and Ready or Not 2 are good comedies for people who like that kind of comedy. I think they're very effective. But when a movie gets in the way of itself to tell jokes, I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. You know what else? And for people who still aren't grasping it, and they're like, what's he really saying here? Deadpool's a perfect example. Deadpool movies, Deadpool will stop in the middle of the movie, look into the camera, and make a joke. That's Deadpool. That's who he is. People love that. I don't. And so for me, the Deadpool movies are not that fun to watch because he just sits there and makes jokes about what's happening in the movie. Ready or Not and Ready or Not 2 do the same thing. They will take time out of their movie, and not literally, not like Deadpool. That's the extreme example. But they will take time out of their movie to have conversations that no one in these situations would have conversations. They take time out of out of the movie to make jokes in harrowing moments. Abigail was, also by the Radio Silence guys, very guilty of that. They're self-aware. They go, we know we're in a movie, so we're going to make a joke about what's going on. Kind of like we're trying to kind of pretend like we're not, but we're sort of winking and nodding at the audience and letting them know that we're making a joke and that we're all in on it. I go to the movies, just personally, personal preference. I go to the movies to disappear into that world. So when you stop and you make jokes about the world that I'm in, I'm taken out of it. That's not my only problem with Ready or Not 2, by the way. And with regards to its comedy, we'll get into that more, I think, in spoilers. I think it's safer to get into spoilers. Although I will say this, Damon, and I think you agree, if you've seen Ready or Not, it's really hard to spoil Ready or Not 2. There's just like one or two little differences in this one that ratchet it up and create a little bit more tension, a little bit more stakes. Otherwise, they're the same movie, just again. And there's nothing wrong with that because we deal in horror here at Rewind to the Living Dead. We love a lot of movies where it's like, oh, Jason's going to run through the woods and machete a bunch of camp counselors. Sign me up. Want to see it again. That's not the problem with these movies at all. I don't like self-aware humor. Doesn't work for me. That's it. It's a personal preference. I still tell you, I hope this movie does gangbusters over the weekend. I hope that the audiences, like the audience I was with today, are hooting and hollering and laughing and loving and cheering for it. Everybody clearly loves it, except for me and like a select few other people. And I think those same people have that same like neuro pathway in their heads that go, I can't accept that kind of humor. It doesn't work for me.
I'm curious because when we left the movies tonight, me and my girlfriend loves Ready or Not. We actually rewatched Ready or Not last night, and she's just like, I want to put on a movie. Let's watch this. I was like, sure. And I hadn't watched it in a while. I mean, I've seen it numerous times. But I hadn't watched it in a couple of years. So like, well, yeah, let's get ready. And you're right. Like they do make kind of jokey moments, and also I think part of that is the goofiness of like kind of also mocking rich people. Like the movie is based around a really rich family who has to sacrifice somebody every so often to appease Mr. LaBelle, which is actually Satan, is the devil. And they've made a deal with the devil to have all this fame and fortune and power, but every now and again they have to sacrifice a person to appease him, to appease Satan. And so I think the kind of doofiness of that first movie was almost like the ridiculousness of those rich people who were like rich and powerful, but also just jackasses. And not pointing fingers or anything, but go watch Elon Musk's Twitter for about 5 minutes. Go watch Mark Zuckerberg for about 5 minutes. Rich people can be doofy asses. Like that's not. I think that's like we say self-aware humor. It's almost like go watch an actual rich person for about 5 minutes. You'll see they make an ass out of themselves. So that's the humor to me. Now I'm curious, Patrick, because when I got to the movie tonight, my girlfriend was very excited about seeing it. I was as well. We got out of the theater and I was like, what? She's like, what'd you think? I was like, I really enjoyed it. I was like, what'd you think? She's like, I liked it not as much as the first one. She's like, this one wasn't nearly as funny. Now, I consider my girlfriend to be the casual audience. She's not obsessed with horror films. She watches certain ones. You know what I mean? Like we just got tickets to go see The Drama, the new Zendaya Robert Pattinson movie, which is romantic comedy thriller from what I've heard. Like that's the description. Like, and we're going to see Project Hail Mary this weekend. So she's like a very general. Like, she's not a horror fiend. Like she'll go to certain horror films. Like Scream 7 she went to with me. Ready or Not 2 she went with me. And she's like, yeah, I liked it, but it wasn't nearly as funny. Now, I'm not going to make generalizations. I don't want to make any generalizations about people who like Ready or Not. Everyone who watches that movie may come away with some different reason why they enjoy it. Me personally, I thought it was a very unique, fun, kind of goofy movie that like I could just like watch and enjoy and didn't have to think too much about it. And Samara Weaving was awesome. And there were definitely some gory, brutal scenes in that movie. And then the ending was like, holy shit, like just kind of like almost like not that I didn't see it coming, but almost like I can't believe they actually did it kind of thing. Like I thought it was going to go down a different path and they didn't. But she said that comment, it wasn't as funny. So I'm curious, Patrick, like coming out of Ready or Not 2, and I recognize like the self-aware humor was ratcheted down. There's a little bit more sinister things going on here. There were definitely funny moments, but they didn't ratchet it up to like 12. Like that last one, the Ladomas family, who is what Samara Weaving married into, it seemed like they were all just rich jackasses who had no idea what they were doing, and they were just like, they fell backwards into money, and they've continued to be rich their entire lives because they didn't have to do anything to earn it. This one felt a little darker, you know what I mean? I'm not going to say it's serious. It doesn't suddenly become like, Seven or anything, but I'm curious, did you notice there was less of it? Now, I know you hate it, so not like hating the movie, I'm saying like you hate self-aware humor, but the fact that my girlfriend said that, I was like, you know what, you're right. It wasn't nearly as goofy as the last one. So did you notice that, or did you feel it was the same?
Oh no! To me, it hit like a bad note on piano key every 2 minutes. I think what this movie was, it was less funny, is the truth, because to me the jokes felt even more forced. And right away, I would say within 15 minutes, I almost wanted to text you in the middle of this movie. I was so irate. I said, "This is just Scary Movie focused on one movie." Like it's that level of corny ass jokes coming at us. It is literally, that's how it felt to me. It felt to me like it was Scary Movie just only focusing on Ready or Not. Like the Wayans brothers just focusing on Ready or Not is how this movie was coming across. And to me, that was less funny. Like I can understand when people are laughing and having fun with the jokes and all that stuff. I heard less laughter. It was a lot more just, this movie was sassier, I guess, and it was trying to be sassier in general. I felt the addition of Catherine Newton as Faith was like almost like adding a Robert Downey Jr. sarcastic character that constantly had to jab at whatever was happening, and really was just pulling us out of the movie with jokes, with observations, with just a constant nagging of like, hey, what if I talked about this thing when it's not a good time to talk about it? That's my guess, is that's why your girlfriend was like, this one wasn't as funny, because it was just trying to build on what they did before, and in a less natural way. Like there's a lot of self-aware humor. Like, again, I'll go back to Scare Me, which I do think is a good movie. Like fully, I go, that's a good movie. People should watch that movie. I don't like it. Go watch it and have fun with it. And like it knew how to use the environment and what was going on to make things funny. Whereas this was just like, how do we repeat what we did last time, but more? This is a clearly ramped up movie. I don't have the budget on this one in front of me, but I'm guessing it's higher than the $6 million budget that we had last time. It certainly feels like a bigger movie in general. And so I think they were just like, how do we make everything more? And that came across to me as forced, and forced humor is also a kind of humor that doesn't work for me. And I think it in general general audiences will pick up on that and go, you know what, that wasn't as funny as the last one.
The budget was about 10 million, so they didn't go crazy on this one. I think that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why they did it, because it doesn't cost a lot of money to make these movies. So it's weird you say that though, because I get like the humor in this one was less, and yes, like there are definitely forced moments. There's definitely funny moments too. It's funny you mentioned Scary Movie though, because I'll tell you right now, and I'll say this because there's a Scary Movie coming out. I fucking hate Scary Movie. Hate it.
Yeah, I
Hate it
know
with
you
a
do.
passion. When they showed the trailer for the new one, I think I saw it ahead of Scream 7.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend's like, "Oh, we got to go see that." I was like, "No, the fuck we don't." I was like, "I am not like." She's like, "Are you guys going to review that for your podcast?" I was like, "If you want it to be our last podcast ever, because I fucking hate these movies."
The patrons just cried.
It's funny you mentioned that, because like you're comparing it to that, but for me personally, like if it was actually like that, I would hate this movie, because I fucking hate scary movies. I hate those movies so much. Parodies. I hate the parody shit. I've always hated it. I've hated it for when they did Not Another Teen Movie. Any of those movies where they're like, we're going to make a joke about a bunch of other movies. I think it's dumb. I hate them. Ready or Not 2, you're right. Like they do, they definitely stuff in jokes there, and some hit, some don't. But I would argue that that happened in Ready or Not. That's happened in a lot of like horror comedies. And as I've said, I like a good horror comedy, but you have to strike a good balance. Like I think the perfect horror there's two, in my opinion, two perfect horror comedies: Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. Those are two pitch perfect horror comedies. They have a lot of gore, a lot of actual horror, and they all are also funny. But they also have heart, which I think is a key ingredient
Yeah.
to a movie like that. Shaun of the Dead weirdly has a lot of heart, and so does Zombieland. Like beyond like beyond the like little romance going on between Columbus and I can't remember what Emma Stone's character's name was, but like Tallahassee. Like there was definitely romance there, but not even going beyond that. Like there was a heart to that movie, kind of like finding a family in the middle of the apocalypse. And I love that. I love that movie. Ready or Not, yes, it definitely mocks itself at certain points, and Ready or Not 2 carries that out, because once again, I think we're kind of making, like, in a way, they're making fun of the ultra rich. And by the way, I call this movie, and both movies really, like a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. Because the entire idea of this movie is there's actually like a Illuminati. There's actually like this super powerful, rich group of people who control everything. Now, there's going to be those people out there who truly believe that is actually happening. And there are definitely on both sides, by the way, left and right, Republicans, Democrats, however you want to say it. There's definitely people on both sides who believe there are like this ultra powerful group of rich people who control everything. Now, the way the world goes sometimes, I'm like, maybe you have a point. Maybe there is something going, maybe there's someone behind the strings, behind the scenes pulling the strings. But I think what makes this movie so fun to me is like the balance of actual action, thrilling, and real horror. Like there's some gory ass moments in this movie. Like there's some hair. It's a chase movie. Cat and mouse kind of movie, which is no different than. I was arguing with somebody the other day. They were telling me that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake was far better than the original, and I had a real, I had a real passionate debate about like I actually like the remake, but it is an action adventure movie. It's not even really a horror movie. It's a chase him
Damon, I have to interject and just say how insane it makes me when people go, "Oh, it's way more hardcore than the original." I go, "It's an action movie." Like no one sees it that way. I go, "That's just an action movie." The beginning, Texas Chainsaw, the beginning, more horror. But I digress. Damon, continue.
I mean, Die Hard's got a lot of blood in it. Doesn't make it a horror movie.
Yeah, a lot of my favorite action movies are gorier than Texas Chainsaw, the remake.
Yeah. Anyway, so like. I think what made Ready or Not and Ready or Not 2, because like I said, being honest, they're very much of the same DNA. You're not reinventing the wheel here with the sequel. They inject that horror, that gore, the comedy at the right moments. And yes, there are jokes that don't land, but there's jokes in every movie that don't land. Like I said, some of my favorite comedies have jokes that don't land when they're supposed to be funny. and other movies that have moments that are supposed to be funny that I crack up at. But I think where they strike the good balance is because they don't go too far to one way or the other. I know you say, I'm not saying you're wrong. You're certainly entitled to your opinion. You're saying it's littered with self-aware humor that just drives you insane. For me personally, is there self-aware humor in there? Sure. There's humor in general. But I think the biggest humor in this movie, and Ready or Not for that matter, are the rich people proving that just because you have money doesn't mean you're smart and better and more intelligent and you're well prepared for these like harrowing situations where this is literally a cat and mouse game to the death, which that's the humor. Like kind of the rich people almost making fun of themselves or being so dumb that you're laughing at them. And like I said earlier, that is a lot of. I'm not saying all rich people are dumbasses. I'm just saying like there are definitely, like I said, watch an interview with Elon Musk, watch an interview with Mark Zuckerberg. Like these guys have a lot of money. Doesn't mean they're smarter. Doesn't mean they're geniuses. You know what I mean? Like they may have had some good business sense or whatever, but like doesn't mean they're just flat out better than everyone else. And I think that to me is the genius of Ready or Not, because they're kind of dunking on the ultra wealthy, the ultra powerful. And in this movie, which, like I said, it carries on the story from the first movie, you get introduced to a whole new group of rich people. And obviously, like, if you've seen the trailer, you already know Sean Hannity, who was in The Faculty, who was also in the new show The Pit, which is awesome. Sarah Michelle Gellar, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so on and so forth. So, like, and then you got Elijah Wood, who's in this movie. But, like, they're very much, like, showing that rich people are just as capable of being dumb or stupid or tripping over themselves as we would be. And there's a normalcy there. Just because they have money doesn't make them better than us. And in a lot of ways, in a situation like this where they've had everything handed to them their entire lives, and they make that very clear. Like these people are ultra rich. Hey, I want a drink. Get me a drink. They're not even going to the fucking refrigerator to get a drink for themselves. Yeah. Like they're just like snap. And then they're asking them to go hunt a person. And, they got guns, and they got bows and arrows, and they got swords, and they're like, we're going to go out and do this. But you find out rather quickly, this isn't Dune where they've been training for this their entire lives. Like, they're not out there like Luke Skywalker, like, I've been trained to become a Jedi. They are jackasses with a rifle. They are jackasses with a sword. They are jackasses with a bow and arrow. And that humor of like kind of mocking and making fun of the rich, and then you've got this kind of like every girl being Samara Weaving. She talks about in the movie she's a waitress. She happened to meet her fiance, who ends up getting her involved in this cult and this family. And then we meet her sister, played by Catherine Newton, who is a bunch again. They don't come from money. You actually find out during the movie they're foster children. They're sisters, but they were put into the foster system. Foster children, they were put into the foster system, and so. They come from nothing, and you'll find out, Patrick. You and I came from nothing. We came from very poor backgrounds. When you have to scratch and claw and let's be honest, sometimes steal to survive, you are much more capable than the rich asshole who snaps his finger and says, "Bring me my drink." That guy doesn't know what he's doing out in the field, and even if you're not like a lifelong hunter or some shit, you're probably better equipped to survive a night. So that to me is the humor in it, is like kind of making fun of the ultra rich assholes to show that they are not better than us just because they have money. But then you mix in what I found to be a pretty unique story, like the idea, the first one being like she gets married and they're like, you have to play this game, but it's not like a normal game of hide and seek. We are literally going to hunt you and you have to survive till the morning. And if we kill you, game over. If you survive, we die, game over. And when you're watching the movie, watching the original movie, you're like, all right, like this has got to be like, they're just like, this is like the old hokum thing where you're just like, really? Like this can't be real. Like this is dumb. Like you're not really actually going to, like, these people aren't going to just simultaneously combust. And at the end of the movie, I'm spoiling Ready or Not because we're doing Ready or Not too. If you haven't seen Ready or Not, you probably should be listening to this anyways. At the end of Ready or Not, dawn rises and everyone, like Grace being Samara Weaving's character, is alive, and everyone's like, oh shit, this wasn't real. And we're like, see, you idiot, there is no Satan, there is no whatever Mr. LaBelle, and you're fine. But then the grandma just pop and combust, and then they all combust. Like, well, shit, maybe it is real. And it's just a very funny ending to me because the entire movie, I'm like, these people are morons. Like, there is no secret
Yeah.
cabal. There is no like deal with the devil. But then you find out at the end they inject that supernatural element, which is they actually do implode, which is actually funny. I'm like, holy shit, they actually did it. So I think what the point of these movies is like poking and making fun of the ultra wealthy, the ultra rich, the ultra powerful, and showing that even the common person, even the waitress who doesn't have any formal training, isn't like an army ranger or any shit like that, like she's still better equipped for a situation, a harrowing survival fight to the death situation than the guy, the girl, the kid, the whoever who gets to snap their fingers and say, bring me my gun or bring me my rifle or bring me my tracker. You know, they're not equipped for this shit. And I think that's kind of like almost like the eat the rich kind of mentality of these movies.
There's a revenge fantasy aspect to these movies, and I'm not a particularly big fan of revenge fantasy storytelling because it's a little bit like emphasis on fantasy because it is kind of a fantasy. It's like, here's what I would tell my boss if they ever fucking did any, if they ever said that to me again. And in truth and in reality, it doesn't work that way. Like Chris Rock had a great joke one time. He goes, they say what comes around goes around. Nah, most of the time it just comes around and never goes around. It's a fantasy. And I get that. And I get why that's a big appeal to people. I do think, in my opinion, and this is more of a spoiler thing, so I won't get into it deeply here. The fatal flaw of Ready or Not 2 is and this is not spoiling, it continues to hammer home that same joke, which is the rich are totally inept. It's like, okay, we get it now. But B, there's a function to it storytelling wise that, in my opinion, kind of ruins the investment that I would have in the characters of Grace and Faith. And we'll get into that more in spoilers. But to me, there's an aspect of that that completely ruins it. That actually makes the movie less enjoyable, like based, and it's built into the movie. But I don't think the filmmakers see it that way, because I think the filmmakers and a vast majority of the audience just want to have fun, just want to fantasize about getting back at the rich. Believe me, I get it. But this day and age, Damon, I understand exactly why people go, just give me that. I don't even care if it works for the story. I just want to see a bunch of rich assholes take it for once, because we take it on a daily basis and they don't. And that's a valid way to feel. Like, I don't criticize anybody for it. But I'm just looking at it from the story side of things. And there's an aspect of the comedy of these rich people are super inept that, in my opinion, actually makes the story worse.
And like I said, you're obviously entitled to your opinion, and I think one of the reasons these films work, or at least I assume this one's going to work. I've seen so far pretty positive reviews coming out for this one. If you like the first one, you're probably going to like the second one. The easiest way I can tell you. Like,
Yeah.
if you like the first one, you're going to like the second one. They don't, like I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but they don't reinvent the wheel here. This is not Joker Folly I Do, where it turns into a fucking musical or something. I think, like, to me, what this movie reminds me of, Patrick, is like the early Marvel movies. Like the early Marvel movies, like Iron Man, like the early Captain America movies, the early, like where they were serious. They had like they're like, world changing stakes, but they were still at moments lighthearted and still had some fun. And that's something that DC struggled with. When Zack Snyder started making movies, they were just like fucking serious from moment one till the end of the movie. There was no levity.
Yeah,
there
were
no
dramas.
Yeah, and when they got done shooting Justice League, and Zack Snyder had to leave because he had obviously a tragedy in his family, Joss Whedon, who is clearly a piece of shit, steps in. He's like, I'm going to make it funny. And then it was horrible because that wasn't the intention of that movie. Now, James Gunn, who understands how to make a serious movie with humor. Guardians of the Galaxy were the best example of that. Like, there was like harrowing, serious moments in all the Guardians. The Guardians of the Galaxy 3, there was a moment literally made me wept. Like, I wept.
I cried every single time I watched that movie. every single time.
But it's still fun, and there's still funny
Yeah.
moments. He knows how to strike a balance. And by the way, James Gunn got his start in horror. He wrote Dawn of the Dead, the remake. He wrote Slither, which is a great horror comedy. James Gunn understands how to strike that balance. Not everyone can do that. But I think what the Radio Silence guys do here is they're making a movie for everybody. Now, that sounds like I'm demeaning the wider audience, but you can watch Superman's a movie for everybody. You know, I mean, Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man movies, including the new one, Brand New Day, is going to be for everybody. They're trying to market it to a mass audience. They're not trying to make men where you're watching a movie and you're like, what in the fuck is going on here? And then by the end, you're
Cinema.
like, what? And then somebody out there, some cinephile, some, film dick is going to come to you, but
Me, the film dick.
You're not that bad. Where they're going to come to you and they're going to say you're dumb because you don't understand this.
I would never do that.
Here's the intricacies and the brilliance of what they were trying to tell you. And you know as well as I do, I like a good art house movie every now and again, but I do not like a movie where at the end I'm like, what? And you have to explain it to me. I do not like a movie where and I understand there are some movies that are built like that, but there's other movies where you're just like, huh? And they're like, oh, you just didn't understand it. Did you see the subtlety of this scene and the subtlety of this dialogue and blah, blah, blah? I'm like, great. For you, it worked. Didn't work for me, and probably not for, 75% of the people who saw it, which is why it got bad reviews or didn't do well at the box office, whatever it was. We could argue The Bride was like that. A lot of people didn't like The Bride. We were like two of the four people who liked The Bride.
Yeah, loved The Bride.
Loved it. But, so I think Ready or Not and Ready or Not 2 are films that are just made for the mass audience. This is the Marvel DC of horror films. Now it's much, obviously much gorier, much more brutal than a Marvel film. But like this to me reminds me of those early, like the good Marvel. For me, the good Marvel films. I know you're not like the later Marvel films have not been great, but like they have serious moments and harrowing encounters and world changing stakes. But they still inject enough levity and fun and jokes to where you're not walking out of there feeling like you just watched The Green Mile and you want to jump off a bridge, which is what I wanted to do after seeing The Green Mile.
God, I love that feeling, Damon.
I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling. I'm just saying like there's like sometimes like, and I think we're Ready or Not and Ready or Not 2, they recognize what they're making. They're not trying to make a movie that's going to get Oscar nominations. They're not trying to make a movie that's going to change the world or change your opinion on the world or any of that kind of stuff. They're not making culturally important movies like Sinners. They're not making culturally important movies like One Battle After Another. They're not doing that. They're saying, here's a popcorn horror comedy flick that you can sit down, zone out for an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes, watch Samara Weaving be a badass, watch some good acting from Sean Hannity and Sarah Michelle Gellar and Elijah Wood, and walk out of the theater and be like, that was a fun night at the movie. What people like to refer to as a popcorn flick. This is a popcorn flick, and there's nothing wrong with those. And by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong for not enjoying it. I'm just saying, like, for me, every now and again, that's all I want. And last thing I'll say, and I'm sure we're probably going to get to spoilers here. When we watched Scream 7, when we reviewed Scream 7, when we got to the end of that review, we said they need to stop or wait a couple years to make another one or do something because they've run out of ideas. Like, they're just running this entire franchise in the ground because they've run out of ideas. And the movie played out like a pretty normal Scream movie until the ending, and we're like, this movie, like, what in the fuck? Ready or Not was 2019. Ready or Not 2 is 2026. We're going to talk about, is there going to be a Ready or Not 3? I don't know if there will be. We'll talk about that in categories. But it kind of feels like even this one, they're like, we have an idea. We know how to get back into that world with kind of like a continuation of the story. But I don't get the feeling this is going to be a franchise. I don't get the feeling this is going to be like, we got to make 9 of these. Because once you get to part 3, part 4, part 5, it is going to get ridiculously stupid. You can only pull off this magic trick a couple of times. For me, they pulled off a magic trick that worked 2 times now. It would terrify me if they said they were making a third one because I'm like, is this going to be Spider-Man 3? That was on today, the really bad one, the one where they had Venom and
Topher Grace one, yeah.
That's so bad. That was like, they just ran out of ideas. I don't want that. So for me, 1 and 2 worked really well. Don't necessarily need a third. We'll talk more about that later. But for me, it was just like, let's go to the movies. Let's have some popcorn. Let's drink an icy, and let's just kind of veg out on a movie for 2 hours. And that's all I needed. Clearly, it didn't work for you, and that's fine. But it worked great for me.
Well said, Damon. Yeah, I actually do think most people are going to like it. I genuinely do. And I critically looked at the movie, and it had its setups, it had its payoffs. Like the Radio Silence people are competent filmmakers. Whenever I had a question about something, whenever I said I don't think that's going to work, they found a way to make it work. I just can't. I can't get with this type of movie, and that's basically what it is. And I'll do my best in spoilers to break down why it doesn't work for me and why I think maybe on the surface, because the first little run of reviews are sort of being like, it's not as good as the first one. I think I know why. But it does have to do with that humor and stuff. So we'll have to talk about it, Damon. Before we do that, though, Damon, I do need to be a shameless self-promoter, because for the entire month of March, my drama short film, Don't Do It, is streaming on the streaming platform Mometu, Mometu. That is free on your phone, free on your smart TV, free on your connected device for your TV. You download the app, you go to the Short Film Showdown, you go to Don't Do It, directed by your boy Patrick Guerra. You watch that. I get a chance, Damon, if it is watched enough, I get a chance to go on and be part of a potential a situation where it could be made into a feature film. They are offering that up, but they need the engagement. They need people to go out there and help. You download the Mometu app completely free. You don't need your emails. You don't need nothing. You download it to your phone. You can watch immediately. They make it very easy, very quick for you. You go to the Short Film Showdown. You watch Don't Do It for your boy. Let's get me out there, so that way other podcasts can go, boy, I fucking hated that movie Don't Do It. What an art house fucking piece of shit. Like, help your boy get to that point. He wants to be like Radio Silence too, where people talk shit about his movies. I'm not going to talk shit about this movie. I'm going to break it down. I don't talk shit about movies. I enjoy breaking down movies critically.
So check that out, support your guy, support our guy, and do that. Also, obviously, check us out on patreon.com/Rewinded Living Dead. We'll have this episode up within 30 minutes of recording, so you're going to get it days before everybody else. So go to patreon.com/Rewinded Living Dead. We also have a new Film Court podcast coming soon. Did we get that vote done? Do we know what we're doing yet?
Let me take a look really quick at the poll, because guess what? The people get to vote. And that's the coolest thing, is like the Film Core podcast, people decide what we are going to watch. And I just want to see if I can find I have to navigate through this.
These are non-horror films. These are non-horror films
Yes.
to review for Patreon exclusively. So these are not horror films on top of horror films. These are other films we've done. We did Superman at one point. We did Heat, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. We did the Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. So we've done a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with horror. So what is the poll for this month going into for our next one?
Damon, we will call it a close. We will close the poll here. I will say that Project Hail Mary will be our next Film Core podcast, with 44% of the vote, and pretty much all the patrons voted on that. So if you're a patron, your voice gets heard. Your voice gets heard in that poll. They've decided that we are going to review the new Ryan Gosling sci-fi Project Hail Mary. I'll be seeing it Saturday. Damon will be seeing it Saturday. And we are going to talk about it only for our patrons. You want to get in on some of that patron stuff? It's just $5 a month. I know times are tough. I know things are tight. But if you like this show, you get more of this show over on our Patreon.
It's less than a gallon of gas for now. At least,
Jesus, is it? Oh, let me tell you, much cheaper than 1 gallon of gas. Fuck me.
Yeah, speaking of rich people, with that being said, Patrick, we're now going to get into full spoilers. So let me just give you a quick rundown. Like I said, they're not changing a whole lot. When we find out at the end of the movie, obviously Grace, survives a lidomas. She goes outside the house, smokes a cigarette, and the cops show up. We pick up literally right there. She passes out. They take her into the hospital, and then the cops come. They're like, hey, you were covered in blood that's not yours. Like, we're pretty sure you murdered your fiance and his entire family. And at the same time, her sister, Faith, shows up, played by Catherine Newton. They're estranged. They haven't talked to each other in years. but she was listed as Grace's emergency contact. She never changed it, which, by the way, that might sound like a little bit of a plot hole. It's not, because I know who's on mine, but like I didn't know who the fuck was on mine until like more recently. So that's pretty terrible. I'm pretty
Right.
bad about that too. So she's like, we're estranged, but like you got a call, so I come in, and then of course you find out that this entire cabal of powerful rich people who are worshiping Satan and serving Satan, serving Mr. LaBelle. There's more of them out there. It was not just the Ladomas family. And when the Ladomas family died, it kind of reset the clock, so to speak, where it was like five, I think they said five incredibly powerful families. There's one guy who sat on the throne who kind of made all the decisions. When one
By
of
the
the
way,
families goes,
that one guy, David Cronenberg, your horror daddy, is
yes,
the patriarch Chester Danforth.
yeah, so he is the guy who controls everything from his. He's like, he's older. He's in his like hospice bed. He's dying, but he's still very powerful. And when one of the families gets wiped out, it kind of resets the clock, and they're like, we need to like, and because this woman survived, we have to re-engage the game now to either kill her, and the winner of that now becomes the new person sitting on the throne of this council, or all everything goes to shit, because like that's the way things have been done for hundreds of years. And so Grace is in the hospital. She's getting ready to get taken to the police station, and then boom, somebody shows up trying to kill her. It's played by the great Kevin Durand, who is one of the members of these families. He shows up, and then he explodes like what happened in the Ladomas family, because there are rules. You have to follow these rules to abide by the satanic cult. So we come to find out that Sean Hannity and Sarah Michelle Gellar's characters, they are Chester Danforth's children, Ursula and
Titus.
Titus. Thank you, Titus and Ursula, and then all these other families from around the world. There's people coming in, and basically Elijah Wood is the lawyer. That's all they call him, the lawyer. He's the one who kind of mitigates all these things. He basically says the rules of the game. We're going to continue to play hide and seek because the game was never finished. Grace, you now have one more day to survive, and they chain her. They basically handcuff her to her sister as like, basically leverage to say you're going to run, or, you're fucked, or your sister's going to die. And they're like, you're going to run and you're going to hide, and we're going to hunt you. And whoever kills you becomes the new head of the council and now has all this power and kind of makes decisions. We see early in the movie, Chester literally is watching a war unfold. He picks up the phone. He's like, yeah, call a ceasefire. And like 5 minutes later on the TV, they're like, ceasefire's been called. War's over. Like, that's the kind of power these people have. And of course, Grace is like, I'm not playing your game. But then they threaten her sister, and she's like, okay, I'll play your game. And now all these other families are together. But there are rules to the families. Like, you can't kill other members. So, like, you can't take each other out to eliminate the competition.
Right.
It has to be done before dawn. And, like, they have bylaws. They have this giant book that Elijah Wood kind of carries around and kind of, enacts these laws.
Right.
And basically, every family sends out one hunter, or in the case of Titus and Ursula, they get to go together because they are twins. And then when one of the members of the family dies, the next one gets initiated to come in and try to finish it. So like there's a family that comes in from, I think they're from like India or whatever, and there's like a
Yeah.
brother duo. The older sibling gets called, and there's a younger sibling, and then his wife, and then they have a little younger brother. So like it goes down the chain of command, almost like Game of Thrones. And so, like, if one member doesn't make it, the next member gets initiated. So the idea is, like, there's no way Grace and her sister should survive this, because not only this time is it not like 6 or 7 people in a house like she had going on in the Ladomas family, it's like 4 families and like 4 members each. There's like 16 people who would have to get eliminated. And same kind of premise exists, which is you have to survive till dawn. You survive till dawn, the families basically get eliminated, and then Grace could actually ascend to the throne. She could become the most powerful person because she's now defeated, everybody. So that's the premise to me. I didn't really miss anything there, did I?
No, I don't think you did. And they do this great job in the beginning of the movie of just kind of setting up the rule set. It gets exhaustive after a while. I mean, it's about a good 20 minutes of like laying out the rules, laying out who's going to play, like you really have to kind of rebuild the world, even though it's the same premise from the last movie, but they have to rebuild it so you can get all the rules out to understand that, okay, family members go down the line and Grace has a shot at actually winning this time, that's the new big wrinkle. She has the shot at winning. The problem, her complication is she's handcuffed to her sister who she hates. And that is like to me the most exhaustive part of the movie, which apparently everybody seems to love, which is the sister back and forth here. And to me, it was just like them airing family grievances in the middle of being hunted down is so forced and so strained. And it's like, I don't really need to get into it. I know why they get into it. It's not doesn't serve a purpose. It helps understand each of the characters. It makes sense why it's happening. It's just so weird that it's happening while they are being hunted down by these people. One family, a family from China, and this matriarch Wan Chen Xing says like, "Hey, I'm not going to try and kill you. I'm just letting you know there's a way out of this." And they're like, "You got to sword at my throat. You better start speaking because this doesn't make any sense." And she's like, "If you marry my son, this all goes away. The game ends. You marry back into the family. It's all good. It stops, and then I think that family, whoever marries the bride, gets to take the throne. Am I getting that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So now her son is a comically nerdy geek. He doesn't give a shit. He's playing Nintendo Switch. He needs the Wi-Fi code. A very very scary movie stuff that I was not into and didn't find funny at all. But she's like, I'm not going to do it. And eventually they're actually interrupted by the other people trying to hunt them because, listen, these other families don't want this to happen. And so it continues to be a chase, but you learn that there's this like loophole. And so as the families are very, as you mentioned earlier, inept and often screwing themselves out of beating her because they have no skills, they have no good training. They just have to pluck themselves out of their perfect lives, or they luxuriate 24 hours a day, and they're not battle worn or anything, so they all screw up, but they have to. It's part of the rules. It has to be a family member who does it. So they're constantly dodging that, and finally near the end, the two ruthless ones are the Danforths. They are Sarah Michelle Gellar and Sean Hattasey. They're the ruthless ones. They finally corner them. They finally get them in a situation with all the drama and all the bad stuff, and they've got Faith dead to rights. And Grace is like, "Stop! Don't kill her, Titus. Just marry me, and we can call this a fucking day." And he's like, "What's that all about?" And the lawyer's like, "Well, she's right. Yeah, if you marry her, you can ascend to the throne, and yeah, all is well. This can all be over." And he's like, "Fuck it. I'll do it. Good deal. I get to marry Samara Weaving. Sounds good to me." And so he lets her go. They get her ready. They have what is my favorite sequence of the movie, which is the wedding sequence. And Titus shows just how ruthless he can actually be, because in that moment, he kills his sister Ursula because she's kind of plotting pre-wedding with Grace to be like, "Hey, we'll manipulate him. We'll figure him out." He's a piece of shit too, by the way. He beats the shit out of Faith and all this stuff. He's not a good guy. You don't want her marrying him. This is not a good loophole to have. So he kills Ursula, and you're like, "Oh no, Sarah Michelle Gellar, you're dead." And then they have this satanic wedding. Quick diversion here, Damon. Once again, trying to vilify the Satanists. And I said this to my good friend Leo Rising as we were talking. Leo Rising, a very spiritual person. I said, how funny that the Christians tell on themselves by pretending to be Satanists. It's like there's more of this shit going on in powerful Christian families than the Satanists are over here playing video games, watching movies, and reading books and being scientists and shit. They're not over there. They're not scheming to take over the world. But again, they wrap it all in Satanism. They have their satanic wedding. They get married, and as he kisses the bride to seal the deal, Grace very, very wisely stabs and kills him right in the neck and tosses him in the sacrificial pit, because you can kill your own family member. You just can't kill competing family members. And she ascends to the high chair. She ascends to the greatest power essentially in the world, because when you saw Mr. Chester Danforth at the beginning of the movie, you realize he can manipulate wars from his bed. Like, he's that powerful. And now Grace has all the fucking power. And what does she do with it? She throws it away. She doesn't want it. She says, I abdicate from the chair. I don't want the chair. And she tosses the ring into the pit. And knowing there's only 3 minutes till dawn, lets all of the other families jump into that pit, because if they can hold that ring before dawn, They will ascend to they will ascend to the high chair, and all the others, will have to bow to them, and they'll have all this ultimate power and wealth and all this shit. And so the families are in this pit of gore and this pit of like dead goats that they always sacrifice and shit, fighting in swarms of flies looking for that ring. And Dawn comes, and they all just explode in a geyser of blood because their greed took over in that moment. And well, the greed, and also they wanted to save their own lives because they knew if Dawn hit, they'd all explode, and we all know that because that's what happened in the first movie. And Grace and Faith walk out into the sunlight, walk out into the sunrise, and they're going to start their lives over again. This time cleanly, because all the people in power are now out of power. Damon, they don't. There's chance for a good day finally. It just took 48 hours for it to happen. 48 hours of absolute hell for Grace to go through, but she finally got her way.
And just to throw this in there, when Grace kills Titus, she stabs him in the neck with a pin and does it very viciously. By the way, she stabs him once and then just jabs the fuck out of him. And then she puts the ring on. She's now in control because she has the ring and she's going to be the one controlling the Illuminati or whatever, the High Council. But she turns to Elijah Wood's character, the lawyer, and says, if I don't want this and throw it away, like, can I be free? And he's like, well, yeah, like you're giving the power away. So yeah. You'll be free. And she's like, okay. And she's like, I don't want this power here, motherfuckers. And they all dive in, and it's like diving into the pit of needles from Saw 2. And they're just like, jumping over each other and slitting each other's throats. They're just going ham trying to get to this ring and put it on their finger before dawn. And as you mentioned, they all explode. And then, obviously Grace, and the lawyer kind of slinks his way out of there. He's like, oh shit, this is going to end badly. And then Grace and Faith walk out, and they're kind of sisters reunited, and Grace is free. She literally broke the rules. She didn't break the rules, but she broke the game. And
she created new rules basically to win. Yeah.
Yeah. She won. And she gets to leave and be a free woman now. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. I loved the ending because, like, the little loophole with the marriage thing, like, yeah, it just like creating a sister. Like in the last movie, she says she doesn't have a family, and they explain that away by saying she's estranged. Now, that's not uncommon. Like, all the time, like, I have family out there. I don't associate with them. I have, like, literal family out there that I do not want anything to do with. So when people are like, what about your family? I don't have a family. So I understand that inclination of her, of her to be like, I don't have a family, they're estranged. I'm very estranged from my family. So I get it. So like them creating a sister to like add a little extra, a little bit oomph to this movie, a little extra, little extra stakes. I get it. And they don't make, they basically say like the one, Samara Weaving's character moved to New York, and she was like 3 years old, and her sister, she couldn't take care of her at that point. She was 18 years old. She didn't have a job. She's trying to go to college. And so, but her sister, who's in a foster system, is like, you abandoned me. And they've been estranged basically ever since. And so I understand injecting that character. And then like the rules, like the one woman, because early in the movie, the one woman, she has a drone. Like everyone's like trying to find them. They're out in a golf course. They're out in like a resort. And Grace and Faith are running for their lives. And like, only Titus and Ursula have a workable golf cart. They kind of sabotage everybody else's golf cart, and they're rolling through to try to find Grace and Faith. And the one woman has a freaking drone. Like, she's like, I don't need a fucking golf cart. I'll find him with the drone. And she's the one who approaches him and says, if you marry my son, we get the power and you survive. She's like, I had my lawyer scour the book. Something they missed. And then when they mention it to the lawyer, he's like, well, yeah, that's in there, because the book is thick. It's like a real big book. Like, there's a lot of bylaws in there. But once again, this is not meant to be a super serious movie. So you're like, oh yeah, they created a new rule in there. You get married, you survive. And by the way, when they find Grace, she's trapped in like a freezer. She's locked herself in there, and there's no way to get her out of there. She literally could be in there until dawn, and everyone would die. So she's like, here's the alternative. I'll come out, and you have to swear to Mr. LaBelle you're not going to hurt me or my sister, and I'll marry you. Now, that ends the game, and it makes Titus the winner, because everyone's outside this freezer. Like, anyone, as soon as she pops out, they could shoot her in the head, and they win. So she's like, I need you to guarantee our safety, and I will marry you. And that ends the game, and sure enough, that's what actually happens. So the ending being, like, more or less like, once again, the theme of the movie, ultimate power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what happens again. And she wants nothing to do with it because she's like, I don't want this fucking ring of power where I'm going to be able to command the world to do whatever I want. That never ends well. That's never going to end well for anybody. And her chucking it into a pit of dead goats and shit, and all the Richies are jumping in to like dive in, is like the ultimate, the ultimate analogy of what rich people will do to stay rich. Like they'll literally do it. They'll step over you. They'll fire you. They'll buy a company and fire half the employees. They want to stay rich at any cost whatsoever. And so this is just the ultimate irony of them all diving into a pit of dead and rotting goats to find this ring because they can't fathom giving up that power. And I don't think in that moment, Patrick, I don't think it's about surviving. I don't think it's about like we got to live. It's about we want that power. We want that power.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're not like, yes, technically they are also trying to fight for their lives, but they're not worried about that in that moment. Like they're just like, we need to dive in here and get this ring because I want to be the most powerful person on earth. That's their biggest concern. You know what I mean? So it's like, would you rather live as a billionaire or a trillionaire, Elon Musk, or would you rather, die poor? Or, would you rather die rich or live poor? You'd probably be like, I'll die rich. That's pretty much what they're choosing in this moment. They're like, we'd rather die rich than live poor and, just let someone else have the power. Like, we find it for one person, hand it to them so we can all survive. They're not worried about that. They need the power. So they're fucking gutting each other in this pit, slicing, cutting throats. They're not willing to sacrifice the power. And that's really the theme of the movie. Like, if you want to look for the art house theme of the movie, it's that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's all these people are concerned about.
Getting to what I think the comedy got in the way of for this movie specifically was, and you mentioned it earlier, which is the big comedy of this movie is that the rich are inept. Like they don't, as I said earlier, they're too busy being on yachts to worry about hunting people. They don't. This particular group, these five families, they spend their time partying. They show that they do it. They do it in all the setups. These people are partying. They're having a good time. They're doing all this shit. They don't spend their time thinking about the hunt, and this only happens every 100 years, I think it was in the original lore, something like that, where it has to happen. The sacrifice has to happen, and so this whole generation is not prepared for this because the generation prior to them was the ones busy building wealth and building power and really controlling the world, and they're handing it off to lazy nepo babies and rich kids that have nothing to do with their lives. There's a problem with that. Comedically, yes, makes total sense. But for the stakes of a movie, it starts to eat away at the idea that there is an obstacle for Grace to even have. I know she's never going to get killed by one of these people. The only one I was almost a little concerned about was Titus. Titus was ruthless enough, and even his sister, Ursula, but they were ruthless enough. But they even have a moment in the movie, and I'm not kidding. There is a moment where they are in basically a standoff with Ursula and Titus in the middle of nowhere. It's just the four of them. It's just Grace and Faith against them. And there's this little back and forth that's kind of ridiculous and requires like supervillain monologues to make sense. And all, like, it's, again, very, very using its structure and its jokes to like actually stretch the movie out. And then at one point, Grace and Faith get away from them. And instead of running out the gate, they run right back into the mansion. They just do. And you're like, oh, like they are never going to be in danger in this movie. And I never once felt that they were in danger. I really didn't. Until that moment where they get Grace on the one side of the door and Faith on the other side, and he's got a sword to Grace's throat. It's like, this is kind of the standoff here. Like, I could kill her, but then she could just stay in there until dawn and we're screwed. So they didn't really, that wasn't true danger. So if I never feel like Grace is truly has an obstacle, and really the only obstacle they even offer up is Faith herself, who like sometimes helps her, sometimes doesn't, sometimes gets in the way, sometimes helps out. I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to sit here until I see how you win, because I know you're going to. And then I lose interest in the movie.
But I mean, that's no different than any slasher. You always know there's going to be a final girl. There's never.
No, that's not true. Sometimes they lose, Damon. We just mentioned it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. The final girl in that movie, played by Jordana Brewster, She could have run away. She chose very heroically, we talked about this, to turn around and go save her friends. She could have ran away. She was scot-free. She turned around and she said, nope, the right thing to do is I'm going to go save my friends. And she paid the price for that. She died for it.
But we know that because they had that was a prequel. We already knew what happened in the sequel.
Sure, but I mean,
but like, but I'm talking about like when you go into a Scream movie, like that's part of what is kind of like that once Neve Campbell's character survived Scream 1, you knew she wasn't going to die in Scream 2. You were just curious like who are the killers, who else is going to die, and I understand you're going to say that's part of the problem with that franchise. You're right.
That's exactly the problem with that franchise. Yes,
but like when you watch your favorite Friday the 13th Part 7, there was no way Tina was dying. She was not. There was no way she was going to survive until once you found out she had powers and she had psychic ability and she was going to actually be able to battle Jason. You knew for an absolute fact, moment one, she was not dying. At that point, you're like, who else is going to die? And I think that's what the point of injecting Faith in this movie, because there are a couple moments where you're like, Faith is probably going to get it, and that's going to almost spur on Grace to like finish her vengeance against these rich assholes because Titus corners Faith and beats the living shit out of her. Like, it's almost a little uncomfortable at moments because he's just beating the living shit out of this little girl. And you're like, God damn, dude. Like, he's just like kicking her and punching her. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's pretty bad. And like, that to me is the element they injected in this movie because you're like, okay, Grace survived the first one. You got to raise the stakes in the second one. How do you do that? You introduce a family member to where you're going to, and I understand your whole point about like having this family drama play out during the movie, but having not seen each other for 7 years, being thrust in the situation, and they're working out their problems while they're running for their lives. It's a little goofy. I get it. But in reality, like if you haven't seen somebody in that long, you probably have weird conversations in that moment because you're like, why are you here? What? How do we end up here? Whatever. But the injection of Faith is what kind of raised the stakes a little bit. Even if you didn't think Grace was going to die, I thought there were definitely a couple of moments where Faith was going to die, and that was going to spur on the story. Or potentially, even though I didn't think Grace was going to die, I was like, maybe they are going to kill Grace, and it's going to pass on to Faith. Like, that's going to be the way the story carries on.
Sure.
But, yeah, you're right. I wasn't feeling, but like I said, the first one, which I know it didn't work for you, when Grace was in the first one, they put her in enough harrowing situations where, like, there's a moment where they literally capture her, they have her on the table, they're ready to sacrifice her to Satan, and she manages to get out of there. I understand it gets a little goofy at that point. Like, how many times is she going to escape? I understand that. But again, that's just like any, there's a lot of horror movies that are like that. And yes, there are going to be those movies that really surprise you and throw you for a curve, and you're like, oh my God, they didn't make it. But let's be honest, there's a few and far between. And we probably name on two hands the amount of movies where that actually happens when they are set up like this kind of movie, like the horror comedy, that kind of thing. At the end of Zombieland, there was never a moment where I thought that Jesse Eisenberg's character was going to die or Emma Stone's character was going to die. I knew they were going to make it. That's fine. Yeah. Like, I still enjoyed the movie. You know what I mean? Like, there were definitely moments where, maybe they're going to kill off Woody Harrelson.
My only counter to that is Zombieland's funnier than Ready or Not 2. That's my counter to that.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, like, there's lots of movies where I'm like, oh, yeah, they're going to make it. It's how you get to that point. And
yes,
for me, Ready or Not worked, and Ready or Not 2 worked, because I don't need it to be more than what it is. It is a battle for survival, and it's no different than just like watching Die Hard. I knew John McClane was going to make it. There was no doubt in my mind.
But the difference with all these movies that you're rifling off is that you like them. I don't like Ready or Not. Well, so for me, the thing it needed was subversion, because I'm not enjoying the humor like everybody else is. I'm not enjoying the premise like everybody else is. And so again, it's a me problem. And what I'm saying is that to make me go, you guys should watch Ready or Not 2 and don't even dare listen to spoilers until you have finished watching the movie, because they subvert the shit out of my expectations, because I was not a fan of the movie until this thing happened. That thing never happened in this movie. So from my perspective, I go, without subversion, this is just a movie I don't like. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing I can do about that.
And that's just personal preference, because for me,
100% of personal preference. 100%.
And like I said, and going back to my Friday the 13th Part 7 example, like, if you watch that movie and you have a similar feeling about Friday the 13th, which is kind of my feeling. I'm not a big Friday the 13th fan. You know this.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't. Yeah.
And when you watch that movie and you see there's a girl with telekinesis in your head, if you are Patrick Guerra watching that movie, you're like, oh yeah, Tina's gonna make it.
But the reason why that's different, in my opinion, is that all the other Friday the 13th movies don't have that element in them. She's the new element. She's the subversion. What's this going to look like? Every movie ends with, or every Friday the 13th starts with Jason killing a lot of people, then being killed, then resurrecting. That's the pattern. I already know that.
I know, but like,
but Tina was the subversion of Friday the 13th Part 7. I'll give you an example on your end. What's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street?
Part 3.
Part 3. And what happens in Part 3, Damon?
Yes,
we lose Nancy Thompson.
Yes.
It's a gut punch of all gut punches. That's subversion. I don't even like that movie. But that I cannot deny is the subversion of all subversions, when the woman who defeated him comes to help the Dream Warriors and she gets taken out. You're like, oh shit, stakes raised. Subversion, didn't see that coming. I thought Nancy was coming out on top with a fucking Dream Warrior crown. Psych, she's out. Subversion. That's my point.
No, I understand, but like when you watch any Friday the 13th movie, you just have to identify the final girl. That's all you have to do. You know someone's going to make it. You know someone's going to survive this.
Yes. No, 100%. 100%. Those movies don't even work on the sophisticated level that Ready or Not does. It's a much more sophisticated movie.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm not a Friday the 13th fan, because there's not even a story for me to grab onto. It's just a bunch of teenagers showing up in the woods.
These are slashers, Damon. True slashers. Yes.
It's just murders, and that's fine. And I understand you love those films. For me personally, I'm like, if you're gonna give me the final girl, then at least give me a story to get there. They don't have story. There's just like here's
right.
Tina.
And that is why Part 7 is my favorite. It has the best story.
But to your point, there's no subversion for me in that movie. There's none whatsoever. As soon as they show Tina, I'm like, oh yeah, she's going to be the one to kill Jason.
But again, if I'm in Damon Martin's shoes and I'm a fan of a franchise, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is all about perspective. As someone who is a fan of Friday the 13th, that was a subversion. For you, who's not a fan, you're like, she's going to live. What's the problem? Well, you're not giving me anything new. For a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, when Nancy dies, that subversion makes you go, holy shit. And just imagine having a level of subversion in Ready or Not like that. But people are like, dude, that's not why I go to Ready or Not. I go to Ready or Not to have fun and to see the good guys just kick ass from point A to point Z. And I go, okay, that's fine, but that's why it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and that's what I said. Like, for me, like, knowing that, and the injection of faith gives you that just a little bit extra of, like, who may not make it. Because I did have that in my mind. Like, are they going to pass this on to Faith? Like, she's going to, Grace is actually going to die. Even though in the back of my head, I was like, Grace is probably going to make it. I was like, maybe they're going to do something like that where they're going to pass on this, like, tragic curse or whatever on to Faith. And then there are moments where I'm like, oh, they're going to kill Faith. Like, that's going to get Grace to, like, go full, fucking Rambo here.
Sure, yeah, that would be great. That would be a great bit of subversion. It would, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. There were moments of that. I'm not saying I was like, oh, it's going to happen, or like there were moments where I'm like, oh, they actually are going to kill Faith, and that's going to be what's going to serve as the catalyst to the last part of this movie. It didn't happen, and that's fine. But like I said, I don't need this movie to be more than what it is. It's a fun, enjoyable popcorn flick, and like, to me, I think it is a great comparison. I mean, like, they're obviously far more sophisticated story and actual plot than like a Friday the 13th movie. No offense.
No, it is. Like, I mean, I don't think Friday the 13th is anything more than it is, but that's why I like it. It's very simple,
but like,
actually.
This to me is like the next level of that. Like, there's actually story, there's actually dialogue, there's actually good acting. There's a fun story at the center of it all. There's a conspiracy. People love a good conspiracy theory, and the idea that there's these powerful families running the world. Well, there's a whole lot of people who already believe that's actually real. And then you inject, like, this one, I would argue, had much better characters. Like, the character of Titus and Ursula were great characters. And I think part of that goes into, Sean Hattie and Sarah Michelle Gellar being great actors. But, like, they were really compelling. And then, like, they had the one guy played by Nestor Carbonell, who's a great actor from Lost and other things he's done, The Dark Knight. He just has, like he's kind of a goofy character, but he's like a hunter. He's got a big rifle and, like, a little goofy, you know what I mean? But, like, I think there's, like, actually a little bit more, because when I watched Ready or Not the other night, I was like, I kind of remembered a few people in the family, but I kind of didn't remember the rest of them. Like, you were kind of all forgettable outside of a few of you. This one, I think, had a couple more memorable characters stuffed in there, and I think they did it on purpose. But yeah, I don't need this movie to be more than what it is. And when you're saying like a Subversion would have worked for you, you're absolutely right. That would have worked for you. For me personally, I didn't need it. No different than watching, I mean, yes, you're right. Like the Nancy thing is a good twist, but like watching part 4, when they introduce Alice, I'm like, Alice is going to be the new final girl. Because that's kind of the formula is like you kill off one,
Right.
a new one's reborn. And yeah, that's all I needed. Like I said, that's all I really need. Like if they tried to keep this going, maybe they try to do that. They subvert things a little bit. But I personally, and we'll get into this in categories, like, I don't know if they're going to go any further than this. I don't know if they need to or even should.
Yeah, we
But
have a little moment for that.
yeah, but yeah, for me it worked perfectly. I didn't need it to be more than it was. It's fun. It's goofy. It's got definitely some gory moments, some harrowing encounters, good acting, and a solid enough script. It's kind of like we talk about Subversion. Like what pissed us off so much about Abigail was the trailer that literally showed us the twist. But imagine if you'd been able to see Abigail without ever seeing a trailer, without ever knowing what was going on there. I'm not saying like there were still problems with that movie, but like not knowing that twist,
Right.
like, oh shit, what a great twist. I don't like this like I didn't need that twist. I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was a continuation of the first one. There was definitely some fun new characters, a little wrinkle with the whole like, world's most powerful cabal, whatever. That's it. And that's all I needed. For you it didn't work. For me it worked perfectly.
Yeah, this movie doesn't upset the apple cart. It says you like that, we'll give it to you again, no problem. Like, and they just do. And again, like I said in the beginning, setups, payoffs, they're all there. Everything's in place. It's just not it's not anything that I would find entertaining.
Yeah. Well, for me, it worked perfectly. But like, and I think, I mean, you've already said this, like, you're going to be in the minority here. Like, the vast majority of
Oh,
people do enjoy it.
like I think only one person has gone, yeah, me too. Everyone else is like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Patrick, let's get into some categories. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week here and talk about best performance. So when it comes to Ready or Not 2, a movie you absolutely hated, who gets your best performance?
Damon, my best performance goes to Sean Hennessy, who played Titus Danforth. And for most of the movie, I was not a big fan of him. And then there was that turn, right, where you mentioned where he starts beating the shit out of Faith, where I'm like, oh, he's a real bad guy. Because again, they were playing the idea of like he was the inept one of him and Ursula. Ursula seemed to be the one that was more in control. It seemed to be the one that was really going to be able to pull the strings, and he was just sort of, I don't know, kind of a daddy's boy. He didn't really know how to like he didn't have the grit that his dad did, but she did. That was the whole thing. And so when the turn started to happen and he was like, okay, cool. Like now I have the leverage thanks to Faith. Faith gave me, I mean, excuse me, thanks to Grace. Grace giving us the out here. I'm going to get the seat. Perfect for me. That's great. Again, a rich guy doesn't earn his spot. A woman comes in and goes, I'll fix this situation. And he goes, great. And I get all the power. Yeah, you get all the power. I love it. Let's do it. Because now he doesn't have to do anything. And then he goes and kills his sister to assert that, to make sure that he gets that power. And I was like, you know what? I'm not enjoying anything about this movie, but if I could do just this hairline rewrite of the Living Dead, if more of the movie had focused on those twins and how formidable they were as a team, getting to that point would have been even more satisfying because I liked his turn. It's like, oh, you want to play rough? Fine, we'll play rough. Like we'll actually play rough, and I'll show you how bad it gets. I liked that, and I was like, oh, I could have used a little bit more of build up with him and less of the goofy hunter or the melodramatic this one or that one or the silly Indian family. Like all that stuff just played clownish. This was an interesting storyline, and I liked what he did with it.
So originally, my best performance was also going to go to Sean Hannity because I like him a lot as an actor. Like I mentioned on the show before, I watched The Pit. It's an amazing show. He's on the show. He won an Emmy for the show. He's a great actor. I've liked Sean Hannity ever since The Faculty and other stuff that he did in the past. But in this movie, he plays a real sinister. Like he actually like as goofy and as doofy as like the rich people are in this movie, and like a lot of people are in real life. He's evil as fuck, and you find out when he just literally beats the shit out of Faith, and then his sister tries to stop him. He punches her too, and you're like, oh shit, like this guy's really bad. And it was fun to see him in that kind of role because, like, not saying he always plays good guys. I've definitely seen him play bad guys before. There's a movie called Alpha Dog. Have you seen Alpha Dog?
Yeah.
He plays like a kind of a dumbass, but he's a bad guy in that movie and does some pretty evil shit. So, like, I'm not saying he hasn't played that kind of character before, but he does have a really sinister turn. Like, he's definitely like the most sinister person in this movie. But I'll go on the other side and say Sarah Michelle Gellar, because Sarah Michelle Gellar is so well known for playing one of my all-time favorite TV shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where she is like, and then, by the way, the character is much deeper than just being like the ultimate good person or the ultimate hero. She's definitely got a lot more to her, a lot more layers. But it kind of reminds me of watching Sarah, not totally different character, totally different movie, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of watching her in, oh fuck, I just had a brain fart. The one with Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Phillippe.
Cruel Intentions.
Cruel Intentions, thank you. When
Yeah.
I remember watching Cruel Intentions the first time, and at that point I had known Sarah Michelle Gellar from like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream 2, she'd been, and then she plays an evil fucking person in that movie. Like, she's twisted as fuck in that movie. Like, God, like, she could play a really sinister character. It was a big turn for her to play that character because you're just not used to her playing a bad person or an evil person. This kind of took her back to that, but like she still had the little tinges of good around the edges. And even when she goes to see Grace right before the wedding, and she's like, my brother is evil as fuck. We need to work together to kind of, mold him and shape him so he doesn't just ruin the world. Because once he gets that power, we're all kind of fucked. And actually, in that moment, I'll tell you, my rewrite of Living Dead, I was like, Grace, why don't you marry Ursula? There's no rule you can't marry the woman. Marry the woman.
Yeah.
And then make out with Sarah Michelle Gellar and make us all happy. Like,
make the literal whole world go, yay, that's way better.
That was my first thought. I was like, why don't you marry her? Because they didn't say there's a rule you had to marry a dude. Like, they didn't say that, you know what I mean? Like, so right. Like, that was my idea, but it didn't go that route. But like and even in that moment though, you're like, can I really trust her? Because she's been pretty, vile this entire movie.
Yeah, I didn't trust her in that moment because that's how they built her character.
Yeah, but I like the kind of devious turn of that acting, because like I said, I always think of Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy. I think of her as like the good character, the heroine, the hero. And to kind of see her take that dark turn in this movie, I was like, yeah, she's pulled it off before, but I was like, it was kind of fun to see her back in that role again.
It was nice to see her as the elder statesman of the group. You know what I mean? Like, she is an icon. She 100% is an icon, not just from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all these great early 2000s horror films that she took part in. She's a mother of horror. Like, she just is now. And that's really cool. It's really cool to kind of see her at this point in her life go, I gotcha. I can come in and I can add something to your movie. I can be part of that. And yeah, I'm just total aside. I'm bummed that the Buffy show isn't coming back, not because I was ever a fan, but because I like seeing her shine. It's cool. It's cool. And it sucks that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about that too. Patrick, next category, you kind of left it up to me for this one, which is MVP. And I think one of the strong suits of Ready or Not, and in particular Ready or Not 2, is the acting. But I got to give the MVP to Samara Weaving, because when she made the movie in 2019, she wasn't Samara Weaving, who's been in a million movies and everyone knows her as a household name. She was pretty much very early in her career. She comes in here and she steps back into this role she hasn't played in 7 years, or I guess 6 years, depending on how the filming goes. And she steps right back into Grace. You remember why you liked her, why she was so charming in that first movie. And she has that edge. She has that kind of badassery to her. She gets thrust into these really vile situations, and yet she finds a way to make it out alive. And it kind of reminds me in a weird way of like, I'm not saying no one could have done it, but like, could you ever imagine anyone playing Sidney Prescott besides Neve Campbell? You couldn't.
Sure.
Samara Weaving embodies this. Like, and I'm saying Samara Weaving's been in a lot of good movies beyond horror. She's been in a lot of good movies in general, TV shows too. But like, I couldn't imagine anyone else embodying Grace, even through 2 movies, and saying it has to be Samara Weaving. So like, I just give her the MVP because she's awesome. She embodies that character. She embodies like a person who becomes a badass who's not a badass. Like, she's not meant to be a badass, but she becomes a badass, and I really enjoy that about that character.
I see the character differently, even from the original movie. I see it still in the kind of revenge fantasy category, the sort of like unrealistic badass. By the way, I love Samara Weaving, but it's funny that you mentioned this. You can't see anybody else playing her. I don't know if you remember this anecdote, but back in 2019, before we had this podcast, I sat down for Ready or Not, because guess what, folks? I like watching horror even before I had this great podcast that I love so much. I sat down, I watched Ready or Not, and when the credits rolled, I went, "Where the fuck is Margot Robbie's name?"
Oh,
I did not know that I wasn't watching Margot Robbie. I thought I was watching Margot Robbie in Ready or Not. I had zero idea. I knew who Samara Weaving was. She was a lesser known actor back then, but I'd seen her and stuff. The whole time I thought I was watching I was watching Margot Robbie. So yes, Damon, I can picture someone else in the role because when I first watched that movie, I thought I was watching Margot Robbie.
that's pretty hilarious. That's a good one. I like that very much. Patrick, next category: best gore / best kill. Now, listen, you don't have to like Ready or Not. Clearly, you don't. Ready or Not 2. You have to admit, they do get some pretty gnarly moments in there with the blood and guts in these movies, like both of them. So, Patrick,
I think the first one was better. I think the first one had better gore. I think this one was a little too CG for me.
I disagree. I think they were pretty even. I mean, I think there were definitely some cool kills in the first one.
Maybe.
There were some, but yeah. So, anyways, what is your favorite gore / kill in this movie?
My favorite gore / kill ended up being a kill, and that was Titus's kill. First of all, one of the very few things that I did like about this movie was that the wedding sequence, the satanic wedding. I'm like, oh, cool, babe. Do you want to get our vows renewed exactly like that fucking thing? Because it visually very stunning. I loved it. My favorite part of the movie. But the fact that she jabs this dude in the neck and then proceeds to just prison stab him as many times as she possibly can before tossing him into a pit of rotting goat gore. It's a Satanist dream, Damon. Dare I say a Satanist's bloody wet dream? I mean, to not be too rude, it's just fucking cool. And I was like, I like this very much. So it had nothing to do with the gore of it all, but the kill itself was incredibly satisfying and just part of that overall very cool sequence.
What was so awesome, and by the way, Samara Weaving in a black wedding dress. Oh my God!
It was a thing of beauty, Damon. I genuinely loved that part of the movie. I did.
I'm not trying to be pervy. I'm just saying, my God.
No. My God, also just fucking cool. Like, just fucking cool.
Yeah. But that kill, like, she stabs him in the neck and he's already dying. And you're like, oh shit. She grabs a pin, which everyone's been using to sign their name in blood the entire movie. She grabs it and jabs him in the neck. You're like, oh shit, cool move. But then, like, as Titus is on the ground dying, she grabs it again and just starts fucking, like, full on and that was what made it cool. Like, just jabbing the neck, you're like, oh shit, she killed him. But she was like, hold on now, I really want to kill him. And I just loved it. She's just like, it was just really fun. And to that point, mine's also a stabbing, and it's not because it was surprising, it was just really good gore, which is when they're in the dining hall and the one woman's trying to convince Grace to marry her son, and then Nestor Carbonell's character comes in and tries to kill him, and she's like, you can't kill me, we can't kill each other, we both die. Like, that's part of the rules, the families can't kill each other. And they end up, he charges at them, and Grace gets a hold of the sword and turns it, and she stabs Nestor Carbonell's character in the throat, and then the sword comes out. Now they both end up she ends up imploding because like the one woman who's trying to save her, or supposedly trying to save her, still had her hands on the sword, so she implodes. But what was cool was when that sword goes through his throat and they pull it out, he's gurgling in blood. It's a pretty cool kill. It's a pretty cool gory scene.
Yeah, it was not bad. I like the idea of like Grace's hand being on her hand as the sword went in. It was one of those cooler, more better choreographed moments.
And I will say, like, I'm not trying to change my answer, but like, the one where Titus breaks Ursula's neck, it's pretty fucking like. He's got his sister in like a chokehold and he snaps her neck and like, god damn, it's just like in terms of brutality, it's like, god damn.
I would have loved a little more of that, is all I'm saying. Like, I think I would have loved a little more evil Titus throughout the movie.
Yeah, but like when he turns.
Yeah, when he turned it on, it was good. When he turned it on, it was good. But yeah, I could have used more of it.
Now, Patrick, the next category is One More Time. Now, I'm going to answer this first because clearly I'm a fan, whereas you're not.
Right.
Now, when they announced they were doing Ready or Not 2, I got pretty excited because I did. I loved the first one. It's one of my favorite films of that year. It was just original. I'd not really seen anything like it. It was fun and different and had a great performance from Samara Weaving. Kind of introduced me to her, and I've adored her ever since. They found a way back in. it didn't work for you, but for me personally, they continued the whole satanic cabal, rich, powerful people ruling the world.
And even though it didn't work for me, by the way, it logically made sense. I was like, I see why they have to complete the game. The game didn't get completed. Like, it made sense.
They found a way back in that made sense. I don't need more. And the reason I say that is because if you carry it on now, as I mentioned earlier in the show, then it starts getting too ridiculous. Like, you can't say, oh, well, there were 5 powerful families, there's 6 more. Or, you know, you got to take the ring. Or, well, I don't know what the plot would be, but it's like, this made sense. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't just be that one family, the Ladomus family. Like, there definitely would be more in this powerful cabal. Like, that's real. We all know the Illuminati, whatever. You said it makes sense why you would carry it on. The game wasn't done. The game's done. Like, I don't need more. I love this movie and I enjoyed it, and it's a good 1-2 punch for me personally. It worked. But the ending of Grace and Faith walking out of there being free, I don't want to find another loophole where they're like, hold on now, you didn't really get out, or hold on now, you know, this person survived, or what. I don't need any of that. Like, end it here. It's a cool ending. You know, like, if you want to do like a fun, like 10 years from now, do like a fun, like, Where's Grace Now, little short or something, just like kind of like, who did she end up marrying, something fun and stupid? Sure. I don't need another movie. I don't need another weird satanic cabal. I don't need to figure out like what happened to Elijah Wood's character. This was a good bookend, 1, 2. We don't need a 3.
Damon, I think I have a way into another movie. Believe it or not, the one guy who is not interested to seat for another movie has an idea for the other movie. What if there are families out there that were wronged by these 5 powerful families and ended up destitute, ended up in places, and then once word got around that those families were no longer in power, the families that they wronged are going to come back and look for the ring, look for they may even get the ring. They may even go to that burned down mansion and find, or the resort and find it, or whatever they're going to do. I think that's your way back in, is like actually now switching the paradigm to people who have been fighting, have been clawing their way through life because they were put down by these other families. This is your way back in.
I'm fine with that. I'm saying Samara Weaving's character, the Gray story.
Damien, it goes without saying, and this we just had this discussion a couple weeks ago with Scream 7. That's over. That story's over.
Yeah.
That story has to be over.
Okay.
God, please. If you learn anything from Scream 7, leave her story alone. The bride has succeeded. Let her move on.
Okay, in your version, sure. I think that would be something different and kind of cool. I'll give you a high five on that one. I'm saying like the Gray storyline over.
God, please, yes. Let me make that so clear. Please let Grace move on. If I'm learning anything, it's like Final Girls have a shelf life of 3 movies max. 3. I know Scream. I think we were able to stretch it out to 5. Honestly, that was like stretching it real paper thin. I think 3 movies max, and I felt like we got a really good end here especially for Grace. You could now argue you could put faith in the next movie, and believe me, Catherine Newton is not turning down a starring role in what is probably going to be a very successful horror movie. So don't be surprised if we end up seeing Faith again. But yeah, please let Grace's story end. She did her damn thing. Like, let's move on.
Yeah, 100%. Patrick, next category, can we survive this horror film? Now, this is an interesting question for a movie like this because you and I are not rich. We are not powerful. We do not have the kind of money. So I don't know where
we're Grace. We're Grace and we're Faith. That's who we are.
Yeah.
We're marrying into these wealthy families. We got these sugar mamas, and they're like, okay, Damon, you're marrying into the family. And that day, a bunch of inept rich people are going to hunt you down with crossbows and swords. What you gonna do, Damon?
I am going to fuck these people up 6 ways to Sunday. There's this one dude who came over who had like an iron mask and he had a sword with him. And he was like, kind of looked menacing because he had this weird mask on and everything. And then you realize he didn't know what the fuck he's doing. No. Like, I would front kick that dude and grab that sword and stab him to death in about 2 seconds flat. And part of the reason, and I get it, you make Samara Weaving the character because she's like a 5'2" girl. Like, she's not going to overpower a dude. I get it. Like, that's part of the harrowing nature. That's part of what makes the final girl tropes work so well because a little girl going against fucking Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, you're not supposed to beat that guy. Just pure size and strength, you're not going to beat that guy. But the smart, savvy final girl finds a way to survive beyond like the muscles and the brawn and stuff like that. So, yeah, like she's going to have to find a way to get out of here. But if you're putting me in that situation, I'm fucking Sean Hannity up. Like, that dude comes with me, I'm going to double leg him and fucking ground and pound his ass into the fucking floor.
I would love Ready or Not 3 to be Damon beating the shit out of a bunch of stupid rich people. Like it's just 90 minutes of oh, here's Damon's putting that guy's head through a wall. Oh, here's Damon chucking a guy off a 2-story balcony. Yeah, like it would just be that. Like zero obstacles. It's just watching Damon beat the shit out of people would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I don't know, like they got guns and stuff, so obviously there's a chance there, but like these people are so dumb, like they can't even aim a fucking rifle. Like,
yeah, no, they're really, really inept people.
Yeah, like I'm going to fuck them up, pretty bad. Like the only thing you're going to get me on is you might tire me out because there's like 9 of you and they're one of me. Outside of that, you're pretty much done. So I think, I think listen, you don't have the same physical, you're not as big as me, but you have the same skills. You would fuck these people up. You'd be triangle choking these motherfuckers left and right.
Yeah, don't let me get your neck. And none of these guys are even blue belts. Like it's going to be a problem if we get in close. Like it just will. I'm not Mr. Badass or anything like that. It's just like I see how inept these people are. You know what I mean? It's just like okay, I think it's pretty cut and dry. Now, if you say, oh, or you can marry Samara Weaving in a satanic ritual, I go, well, now hold on, now, honey. We do need to consider this part of it.
Yeah, Samara Weaving in that black dress, sign me the fuck up, Satan. I'm on. I'm in board. Give me everything you got.
They would be great wedding photos. That's my point. It's like it's going to be a cool wedding.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You could do the wedding pose, just do the fucking horns.
Oh my! By the way, there's all these times where they keep chanting "Hail Satan," and I'm like trying to keep my horns down in the theater. I'm like my horns are like right here-ish, and I'm like, yeah, Hail Satan, Hail Satan.
But to your point, tell me there. I know you already said this earlier, but tell me there wasn't a moment where you're like, I know what they're really saying when they say.
Oh, look, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but listen, there's a lot of bad shit that has come out recently that is very clearly in the news, and it's very clearly from people who consider themselves holier than thou. They're just telling on themselves, and they're dressing it in black and putting a scary horned goat on it and calling it Satanism when it's really what they're up to. Almost always, and they're blaming it on a bunch of nerds who like to wear black. Get out of here. Get out of here. Like, we know who the bad guys are now. The veil has been lifted, and I know exactly who the bad guys are. And guess what? Spoiler alert, it ain't Satanists.
And by the way, every rich person in this movie, as we talk about inept idiots, they all fit the bill. They just happen to paint them as Satanists. But we know what they really are, is all I'm saying. That's all,
yeah. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the narrative, Damon, and I want a piece of it. I want a piece of the real narrative.
This movie probably doesn't get made if you go the way we're talking because they're not going to fund that. But and I know what they're really selling. You may not like these movies, you have to admit.
I 100% go. They're just telling on them. They're just telling on the people who actually have the power, and they are not Satanists.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick, last category is whatever these movies intend to be.
So normally we do at the end, is it scary? And I go, well, I don't think these movies intend themselves to be scary. They intend to be. They're horror movies. They're horror comedies, is what they are. They're horror comedies, 100%. But it's like they don't intend to be scary. They intend to be funny, and you already know where I stand on that, so I won't belabor it. So, Damon, I'll ask you: is Ready or Not-y?
Yes, it's. This is a continuation of the first one. It's just a continuation of the first movie into a second movie with obviously slightly different circumstances, new characters, things like that. But the best way I can say it, Patrick, if you like the first one or loved the first one, you're going to enjoy the second one. I'd be shocked if somebody said they watched the first one, they hated the second one, because by the way, this is not Star Wars A New Hope and Star Wars Force Awakens, where they're just doing the exact same movie with the exact same plot and suddenly new characters. It's not that. But the idea is similar. They're just carrying on the game and there's new wrinkles to the game and new characters to the game. If you liked Ready or Not, I'm pretty confident in saying you're going to probably really enjoy Ready or Not too. They don't, and by the way, even though it didn't work for you, they did what they knew the assignment. They didn't need to fuck around and be like, we're going to reinvent this franchise and create fucking men of, or whatever. We're going to make this Toxic Avenger or whatever fucking dumb movie that was. Like, we're not going to do that. We're going to continue to carry on what worked. And by the way, to their credit, Ready or Not came out 7 years ago, 2019. We're in 2026. Like, they didn't do this like a year later. This was not like just like, hey, we're going to
they took their time with it.
Yeah, thankfully. And so 6 years, 7 years later, like, they're just going to give you into. So if you liked Ready or Not, you're going to enjoy Ready or Not too. And I think that's the easiest thing to say about this movie.
I'd be shocked if somebody who loved Ready or Not didn't love this movie too. It's just, they're the same thing. They change a couple of things to create more momentum, but it's giving you more of what you want. In fact, they even give you 2 women running around. Now you got Catherine Newton in there too. It all works out for the fans of Ready or Not.
Yeah, I don't need Samara Weaving and Catherine Newton's mother to show up in the third. Just no, let's not do that.
I raise you a Barbara Crampton, Damon. Come on, think about it. No, I'm just kidding. Please let Grace and Faith's story end. I know it's probably going to be a pretty good success. I have a feeling this movie will do well. I hope it does well because I always root for the box office. I always root for theaters and movies to do really great. But I can't imagine people aren't going to like this.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, that's our episode. Obviously, we got a lot more coming. I was looking ahead at the schedule. We got a lot of new films coming up over the next couple of months, so we're going to be getting to that. We're also going to make sure to get into some classics. I know we really haven't had a lot of time for that. Usually we do earlier in the year, but there's been a big release schedule so far to start the year. So
yeah, we've been busy.
So we'll have plenty more coming. Obviously, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show each and every week. Make sure you check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and over on the website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. Also, check out our YouTube channel. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. Even if you don't watch us over there, you can like and subscribe. It helps us. It helps our numbers, helps our search results, all that kind of good stuff. So please do that. You got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review. What did you think of Ready or Not 2? I'd be shocked if somebody liked Ready or Not and didn't like Ready or Not 2, but I'd like to hear from you guys. Hit us up on email anytime, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That is rot. livingdead@gmail.com, or find us on social media. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You can find us on Twitter/X. Hey, Elon, I know we talked some shit about you tonight. Facebook, we talked some shit about you too, Mark Zuckerberg. And Instagram, which is also Mark Zuckerberg. So we're fucked. We're just pretty much fucked here.
We're definitely going to be hunted by a bunch of inept billionaires, I'm sure.
Yes. And also, you can hit us up on our own personal social media channels anytime. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, for everyone tuning in. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Peace.